Welcome back to Ridge Haven Homestead. I'm Lori, and today we are making a hearty lentil stew that is so nice on these cool winter days. So grab your lentils and let's get cooking. Welcome to Ridge Haven Homestead. From the mountains of Upper East Tennessee, we share snippets of our off-grid life, cabin build, and garden blessings. Pour yourself a cup of tea, sit back, and take a peek into our off-grid home and family. Let's talk about the ingredients that we want to grab. We want a pound of lentils, or if you happen to go to the Dollar Tree, you're going to have 12 ounces of lentils. And I told you wrong last time that $1.25 for 12 ounces, it seemed very high, but I was judging that by what the prices used to be. I just grabbed this bag of lentils at Walmart the other day. It was like $1.92 for 16 ounces. So turns out the Dollar Tree lentils are cheaper. Who knew? Okay, you want a bag of lentils. And then let's just go through what we have here. I am going to be using some carrots. If I had regular sized carrots, I would use them, but I'm grabbing the baby carrots because that's all I have this time. We like to add garlic to our lentil soup. It gives it a really nice flavor. So I like to add about 4 to 6 cloves. If you don't like it that garlicky, then just use less. So I'm going to grab 6. We like it garlicky. Also, we need a big onion. You can add 2 or 1, however you like it. And I like to slice my onions sometimes, and sometimes I'll chop them fine. So we have that. We also like to add celery, and I'm going to use about 4 ribs of celery for this. If you have the middle kind that has the leaves on it, that adds a really nice flavor too, and that is usually what I do. But since I made lentil soup the other day, I already used that. So I'm getting 4 ribs, wash them off, and slice them up. Another thing that I sometimes like to add are mushrooms. Mushrooms chopped fine or sliced add a really nice flavor to your lentil soup, but I don't always add them. If I have them and I need to use some up, I'll throw some in. Sometimes I'll throw canned mushrooms in, and sometimes no mushrooms at all. One thing that I like to add to our soups is nutritional yeast flakes. It gives it a nice savory flavor. And if I don't use nutritional yeast flakes, I will often grab Bragg's liquid aminos, and that gives it kind of like a soy sauce flavor. This time I'm using the yeast flakes, and I will add that when I add my other seasonings. You can add onion powder and garlic powder if you want to. I don't really think I need to because I'm adding the onions and the garlic, but if I didn't have those, or if I only had the onions, then I would probably add a little bit of garlic powder to flavor my lentils. But onions and garlic powder, or onion powder and garlic, are always things that I use to flavor my beans. One thing we can't leave out are bay leaves. I like to add at least 2 bay leaves per pound of lentils. And then I like to add Italian seasoning most of the time. At the end of my cooking time, I will add salt, and then oftentimes I will add tomatoes, but not always. You can use whole tomatoes, you can use diced tomatoes, you can use tomato puree, or you can leave the tomatoes out. Personally, I like my lentil soup without the tomatoes, but my family generally likes it with, and so I usually make a compromise. I'll eat a little bit without, and then I'll add the tomatoes. We often add potatoes to our lentil soup. I'm not adding that today because I have leftover potatoes to use for other things, but they add a really nice heartiness to the lentil stew. And lentil stew is really forgiving. You can basically put all the different vegetables in and just add to it to make it your own kind of recipe. You can add green beans, you can add cubed squash, other vegetables that you like. These are just the basic ones that we use, so let's get started. First thing we want to do is decide what pan we're going to use. This time I am using my stovetop pressure cooker. This is my preferred way. It's kind of, to me, the easiest, simple way. And so I'm going to be putting some water in the pan. And while I'm adding the water, let me just tell you the other options. You can easily add this to a crock pot. Actually, that's probably the easiest way to make it, but I don't have like 6 hours today to wait, so I'm doing it in the pressure cooker. Crock pot, throw it all together, and then you have a stew that will make your house smell so good. Another option that we sometimes like to use, I will often throw everything into my Instant Pot as well, and it's pretty much just as easy. it probably is a few less steps, but I find that my Instant Pot is a little bit slower than my actual pressure cooker. It seems like it just takes a lot longer to build up the pressure. I don't always want to use electricity, and so I do love my Instant Pot for a pinch and when we have good stored batteries. Like actually today we have plenty of sun, but I don't like the long build up a pressure time, and I don't like the long waiting to let it go out. So I find that it's faster for me to just throw it all in my pressure cooker. This is a stovetop pressure cooker from Presto, and it works really great. So I'm kind of just old-fashioned that way. You can also use no pressure cooker. You can just throw it on the stove and simmer it for a couple hours. Either way, they're delicious. First, what I want to do is wash off my celery. I am making this recipe at a special request from one of my viewers. She was asking me to show how we make lentil soup in our home. I said, oh, I can do that. There's several different ways you can do it. You can saute all of your chopped veggies in olive oil first and then add it to your lentils. I just find it's just as easy and think it tastes just as good to just chop them all and put them in the water and let it go. Soup is such an easy recipe and it's such a nutritious food. You know, they used many soups in war times because you had a one dish meal and you had all of your nutrients saved. Like if you cook different vegetables, a lot of times people would throw out the broth, but that has all the vitamins, so you don't want to do that. So you have all the nutrients contained. It's very hearty and it's very satisfying. I love lentil soup. Sometimes I eat it for breakfast. Let's go ahead and add our lentils to the water, and let's go ahead and wash them first. Just wash them off to make sure they're not dirty. See if there's any rocks. Occasionally you'll find a rock. Just add them to your water. I put water probably about 2/3 of the way up, trying to allow for space for my beans to expand a little, and also so that when I add all my ingredients, it doesn't go above the pressure line. Lentils are one of the fastest cooking beans, but you do want to make sure you cook them well because nobody likes crunchy beans. And I have noticed that the price of beans in the last several years has actually doubled, because we used to get lentils for less than $1 a bag, and now they're almost $2. You have your lentils in your pot. Then all you need to do is chop away with your veggies. You can slice your onions or you can chop them. I'm just going to chop them into small pieces. Dice them, I guess, is the proper terminology. And for some reason, I always buy the purple onions. I don't really know why. I think they all taste pretty similar to me, but I like the purple ones. Just chop them however you like to chop them. It looks like I told you I had 6 cloves of garlic, but there was a couple 2 in 1, so we are having an extra one, a bonus garlic. I'm not complaining. This garlic is from, I don't know if it's from Johnny's or Peaceful Valley. It's actually garlic that we were planting and had a little bit left over, didn't get planted. So we have a couple varieties here which will be growing, and hopefully we'll keep the garlic coming. But it takes a long time to grow garlic. Quite a long time. All right, you can slice your garlic or you can dice it. The flavor will get more distributed through your soup if you dice it smaller, or if you thinly slice it. If you don't have fresh garlic, it's okay. You can grab one of those jars of minced garlic that's already, it's fresh, but it's in a jar. It's in the refrigerator section often. So that works really well, and it's the flavor of fresh garlic without cutting it. I'm just slicing these today. Same thing with the celery. You can slice it or you can dice it. And personally, I kind of like the big chunks in there. I like a little bit of texture, so I'm just going to slice it. I'm not giving huge slices, but I like to feel something in my mouth when I'm eating my soup. You can add more celery if you like, but I wouldn't omit the celery because I feel like the celery is one of the things that gives it really nice flavor. Sometimes I will add celery seed also, but today I'm not going to. Just celery. If I were using regular carrots, I would probably use 2 or 3. So I'm just going to do a handful of these baby carrots that just happens to be what we have. Just slice up your carrots however you like them. We do have some debate about which beans are the best and which ones are the worst in our family. But I believe everybody agrees that lentils are one of the best. I'm glad we can agree on that. One of these times I'm going to share another recipe with you for lentils. That's a lentil dal, an Indian recipe, which is quite good. But not everybody likes that in my house. I don't know why. One of my kids doesn't like it, but he does like lentils. So he's here today, so I'm not going to make that for him. Carrots add a little bit of flavor and color. I think it's really important to add a little bit of color to our soup. Let's take a look. Okay, it's looking really pretty. And we do have our carrots in there. So that is all of the chopping ingredients that we need to do. And now we need to not forget to add our bay leaf. I like to add 2, but this one's like in pieces, so I'm going to add these 2 pieces. It's best if you remember when you add the bay leaves to go ahead and take them out when the cooking's done. I don't know, it doesn't really bother me, but my husband seems to be always finding the bay leaves and he doesn't really like it. I'm going to add a couple heaping tablespoons of nutritional yeast flakes. This is totally optional. I know that some people don't like to use them. That's okay. I like the flavor that it gives. And this would be the time when if you wanted to add your onion powder or garlic powder, you can do that. I feel like the onions and the garlic actually give the flavor to the soup just fine. But just because I have it out, let's add a little bit of onion powder. I'll add a couple teaspoons. It'll just give us more of an intense flavor, which I like. That's about a couple teaspoons, but I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest because that's all I have. This would be the time if you were adding your potatoes to do so. Let's go ahead and add some Italian seasonings. I don't usually measure most of these things, so let's add just like a whole tablespoon to our soup. And then we want to bring that to a boil, and then if we're going to use the pressure cooker, we would like to put our lid on and do the rocker at that time. The 2 ingredients that I don't add until the end are the salt and the tomatoes. The tomatoes can make the soup cook a little bit slower, and the salt also can. So let's go ahead and cook it, and then we'll add those at the end. If you wanted to add your mushrooms now, you could add those, or you can add those at the end of the cooking time because mushrooms don't really take a long time to cook. I'm saving the mushrooms. These are really, my husband likes to have these fresh for salad, and so I'm leaving them out. And so I'm going to put those away while we're waiting for our lentils to cook. Oh, I just saw another wonderful ingredient to add if you have it and if you like it. I love to add spinach to my lentils, and I think I'll add a little bit today. We have some spinach that we could use up, so I'm just going to go ahead and add that, and then we're just going to let it get hot. Sometimes we get these boxes of salad mix, and sometimes we don't eat them soon enough, and so it seems like most of the boxes of salad these days are mostly spinach. I don't know why. We don't love raw spinach, at least not in such great quantities. So a lot of times our salad mix goes bad before we even have a chance to use it. But I like the spinach cooked into it, and you always have to add more than you think you're going to need because spinach basically disappears when you put it into stuff. Adding your spinach to your soup just sneaks in a little bit extra nutrition there, which is a nice thing. Let's add a whole handful of spinach, and I'm dripping it everywhere. That's pretty good. Give it a stir. And it looks like my fluid level is barely to where it needs to be so that I can pressure cook it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on and bring that to a boil and let that cook. This will cook. It'll thoroughly cook in about 20 minutes under pressure. And so you just want to bring it up to pressure or bring it up to a boil if you're not using pressure. And then if you're using the pressure cooker or if you're using the Instant Pot, cook it for about 20 minutes and then let it come down and add your other ingredients. And that is really a simple way to get a hearty stew in a short amount of time. You can slow cook it for as long as you like, and that just kind of gets the flavors really into that. Once you have the pressure going, once it's rocking, then go ahead and turn it down to low and just make sure that it doesn't burn. So you don't want to cook it on really high because things can get, as the beans get thicker, they will start to stick. If you don't know that much about lentils, these are the brown lentils that I use, brown or green. They look brown to me, but I think they're called green lentils. That's the most common lentils, and you're going to find those in the store most often. You can make this same soup using the red lentils, but it will be completely different. It'll taste different, it'll look different. And when those little red lentils cook down, they tend to get a little bit more like yellow. And so your soup will not be as vibrant if you use red lentils. But this is a great way to use the brown lentils. They're still pretty economical, but they're not as economical as they used to be, just like everything else. I like to use lentil soup over brown rice. Makes a complete protein because lentils are a legume, and so with the rice that just makes those you got all your essential amino acids, and so it makes a complete protein. You can also eat lentils with like a pasta. Sometimes I will put either like a macaroni or whatever kind of pasta that I have into my lentil soup and just let it cook for the last few minutes, and that can be a nice addition to switch it up. You can also add other things to your lentil soup. This is just like the base recipe, and you can just go to whatever you like. Go to your heart's content to make variations. You can add a little bit of quinoa for another grain in there and let it cook. You can add barley, which makes a delicious stew. I really like the flavor of barley and the chewiness of barley in our soup. My mom used to use barley, and she would throw a handful in the vegetable soup sometimes, and I really, really liked it. The soup is smelling really good. My whole house smells amazing. It smells delicious. This is the point where we add our salt, and I usually add a couple of tablespoons, or let's start with like a nice tablespoon plus a smidgen more. The beans are fully cooked, nice and soft, and because we added so much water, nothing stuck, which is something that you want to make sure of. That really is all there is to it. This is also the point where you are going to want to add your tomatoes if you're adding them. So I'm going to leave those for my son to add to his, and let's dish some of this up. It smells so, so good. I know you're waiting to see how it tastes. I assure you it's going to be delicious. Let's get a bite and check it out. Oh wow. Yeah, that's plenty of salt. That is so good. And I love the garlic floating at the top. I mean, this is the kind of soup that having some really nice crusty bread is perfect with. And so let me grab some bread and I'm gonna call my son and we're gonna eat lunch. Thank you for watching again. I hope you try the recipe. Let me know how yours comes out. I'm sure yours will be a little bit different than mine, but super tasty. Have a great day. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and may God bless you.